Hello, I'm the Movie Geek and I did something exciting a couple of weeks ago. I attended Hans Zimmer live in concert. This was a birthday gift from my wife and I have to say it was amazing. Hans Zimmer has produced some of the best movie soundtracks to ever grace the silver screen. I was personally looking forward to hearing a full orchestra blast my ears with some of the best music. He has many movies under his belt, from the Oscar-nominated Rain Man back in 1988 to 1989's Driving Miss Daisy, Days of Thunder, Thelma and Louise, Regarding Henry, which in my opinion is a great film, A League of Their Own, The Lion King. I wouldn't say he came into public consciousness, or at least my consciousness, until the year 2000 when we got Gladiator. I know some people who have a lot more soundtracks than me and would probably argue he came to their attention in the 90s with soundtracks such as The Thin Red Line and The Rock. But I think Gladiator was the one that propelled him to become one of the best composers of the modern age. From then on, we got a run on large blockbusters such as Black Hawk Down, Pearl Harbor, which is an awful, awful film, Hannibal, The Last Samurai, The Pirates of the Caribbean. He's done so many well-known soundtracks that there's just so many to list. So I've gone and decided to list my top 5. I could add more, but there's just so many. Anyway, in celebration that I am still buzzing after seeing Hans Zimmer live, here is the list. Number 5, The Lion King. Now I'm putting that here because, along with Tim Rice and Elton John's music, this Disney movie score is the one of the reasons why this film was so popular and is still popular today, having a reboot in the works. I doubt there's anyone who doesn't know the theme from The Lion King, as well as the songs, and for the score, Hans Zimmer won Best Original Score Academy Award. After hearing this live, with the vocals of Lil Wayne sounding exactly as he did back in 1995, justified its place being on this list. Seriously, it was amazing. The fanfare it made, it just made my hair stand on end. It was perfect. Number 4, Gladiator. Here's the one that every film lover could probably be able to recount. It raised the film above all else. I'm not saying Gladiator wouldn't have been a successful, but without Zimmer's score, it wouldn't have made as much of an impact. There's so much that this score has done. It became synonymous with the swords and sandals genre, inspiring scores for action and adventure films and TV shows like Star's Spartacus or 300. It not only brings an epic vibe to the film, setting up the vastness of the armies of Rome and how much of the world they conquered, but at the same time it makes the story a personal one for Russell Crowe's character, and the smaller moments are accompanied with the female voice. There are moments in the film that are enhanced by the music. The scene of Crowe walking through the fields is immensely emotional. The music used in the escape scene is effectively intense, and the battle scenes at the beginning and during the gladiatorial scene are, for lack of a better word, epic. The soundtrack complements the movie, and in my opinion, without the soundtrack, the movie would suffer. Number 3. This was actually added late into writing. I got to the end and took out a soundtrack that I didn't feel was as good, but you could say it's just as good. If you've seen my Batman vs Superman review, you'll know I enjoyed Man of Steel to the point that I didn't really understand the backlash to it. I understand some, but at the end of the day, it gave a Superman that could fight, wasn't overpowered, wasn't boring, and actually had some stakes. It worked and set up the DCEU. So, my number 3 is the Man of Steel soundtrack. Hans Zimmer had to create a new theme and soundtrack to be comparable to John Williams from the 1978 Superman film. This is an iconic theme, and in my opinion, the DCEU would be wrong not to integrate it into the Justice League when Superman returned. When Superman does come back, they could easily blend Hans Zimmer's theme and John Williams' theme together. Zimmer had to create something new and something iconic, and in fairness, he didn't do too bad a job. It is an optimistic soundtrack. I enjoy listening to it when I'm working out, which obviously I haven't listened to for a while and could do with a bit of working out. But it's such a good soundtrack. We have so many tracks that are mind-blowing, and one thing I thought when I watched the film was how alien, or at least how science fiction-like, the music was. The drums were used, and at times they get a little repetitive, but it portrays Krypton as being completely alien. Then flight happens, and gives us the sequence when Clark learns to fly. It's a beautiful scene, and probably, I would say, most people's favourite scenes from that film. It shows him learning, and it shows him failing, and then it shows him succeeding. And all of this can be heard within the soundtrack. It peaks and then drops, and then it rises slowly, and then soars, just like Superman is. It's a great track. But there's more. The scene, and one of my favourite scenes from the film, is when Superman is finding the strength to destroy the world. His face merges with Christopher Reeves, and the music makes you feel that connection. It's great. Unfortunately, because of the repetitive drums, it doesn't go higher on this list. But after a rethink, it did actually make the list. Number 2, Inception. This was the first Christopher Nolan film that made me sit up and take note of his films. Well, I tell a lie, it was actually insomnia, but anyway. I had enjoyed his previous films, but Inception was something that came out at a time when there wasn't anything original in the cinemas, and it took my breath away. This isn't just put down to the direction, story, the acting, etc., but the soundtrack is amazing. All the music works in this film. Zimmer states he wrote it to embody nostalgia and sadness, to represent Leonardo DiCaprio's character's arc. You do get this feeling, and with a lot of tracks, and then we get the action scenes, and again the music raises intensity, making you feel as though everything happening on screen is important. Scenes like the first dream collapsing, the way the visuals slow but the music ramps up in a sort of countdown theme. The chase scene in Mombasa stands out, and despite not being one of my favourites, it fits the scene and it works so well. The music changes depending on what's happening, but each piece fits the scene. The reason for this is probably because Nolan asked Zimmer to write the score at the same time as the production of the film. Working so closely to the film being made, the score is shown how well the score fits to the film. The final piece of music to close the film is beautiful, and it was Zimmer's encore during the concert. The camera focused on him, and you could just sense that this was his favourite. His heart and soul were being put into this piece of music. It works so well within the film, as Leonardo DiCaprio sees his children for the first time and they actually turn to him. He checks the totem to see if it's a dream, but becomes distracted, and the camera focuses on the spinning top. Will it fall? Will it not fall? Zimmer's music closes with us leaving the cinema, questioning whether the spinning top fell, and it was a beautiful way to close the concert. I listen to this soundtrack a lot, and there is one of Hans Zimmer's soundtracks that I listen to more. An honourable mention from the vast array of Zimmer's work is the Dark Knight Rises soundtrack, specifically Aurora, which was written in remembrance of those who lost their lives in the Aurora shooting during The Dark Knight Rises. To hear it as Zimmer told the story of how he came up with the music was beautiful and moving. Number 1. Interstellar. Interstellar split moviegoers down the middle. It is a well-made, competent film that had a near-perfect first and second act, but then, according to some, the third act fails due to the forceful display of heart. In my opinion, the final act makes sense. It is a film that has built to its finale. We see how close the father and daughter relationship is. We understand why Murphy becomes the way she does. We see why Tom grows up the way he does, and through him, we see how the world is coping with the changes. The fact that Cooper leaves makes sense. It is a selfish act done to save his family, and when it comes to getting to the final planet, he sacrifices himself because he has already lost the years he could have spent with his family. To save them, or at least to save the human race. He leaves the ship to allow the human race to survive. I understand the negative comments towards this film, but looking back, all the clues were there. Brand states that love is quantifiable and can be felt across the universe. It's an interesting concept, and ultimately is shown within the film. I love this film, and as such, a large part of loving this film is loving the soundtrack. It again is different to many of his previous soundtracks. It has a massive presence within the film, from the opening cornfield chase to the closing Dylan Thomas poem read by the cast. It peaks and troughs, but each track is beautiful. My favourite is Mountains. The addition of the clock and the slow start, ending with the crescendo, it is a perfect representation of waves hitting. My only criticism to this is the fact it only lasts 3 minutes and 39 seconds. I am left wanting more. It is a perfect track. The use of the organ giving the highly science-based film a foot in religion. The organ is associated with churches, and its use here implies that there is a higher power. And in the end, it is revealed that there is a higher power. It's got such a good blend of science, religion, and humanism. I love it, and I loved hearing it live. It was beautiful. He played a full medley, mixing the high points and the low, and it was beautiful. I hope you've enjoyed my list. I've been the Movie Geek, and this has been a top 5 list. Tell me what you think. Please subscribe. Thanks for watching.